안녕하세요.
The morning rain turned Seoul into a tangle of shimmering reflections. Yoon Ha-ri, 26 years old, rushed across the wet sidewalks, desperately clutching a pile of documents. Her first day at her new job as an administrative assistant at Hwang Corporations couldn't have started worse. Her alarm hadn't gone off, her bus was late, and now, running behind schedule, she was trying to reach the elevator before the doors closed. At the last moment, she slid into the luxurious elevator, breathless, without noticing who was beside her. The woody scent of an expensive cologne filled her senses, and as she lifted her gaze, her stomach twisted. Hwang Ji-hoon, 32 years old, the CEO of the company, was watching her with an impassive expression. His immaculate suit, rigid posture, and indifferent demeanor exuded power. Ha-ri avoided eye contact, focusing on the papers in her hands. But then a slight jolt from the elevator sent the documents flying to the floor. She crouched down quickly, muttering to herself. Rich people never help. They just stand there looking down on others. Before she could gather everything, a firm hand picked up one of the papers. She looked up and found Ji-hoon holding one of the reports, his gaze enigmatic. Not all of them. He handed her the paper without changing his expression. Ha-ri felt her face heat up as she realized who he was. She murmured a hurried thank you, collected the documents, and stood up quickly. When the elevator doors opened, Ji-hoon stepped out first, without another word. But that brief encounter had already left a mark. As she entered the administrative department of Hwang Corporations, Ha-ri tried to ignore the knot in her stomach. She knew her job wouldn't be easy, but she hadn't expected her first interaction with the CEO to be so embarrassing. Sitting at her new desk, she tried to focus, but the whispers of her colleagues unsettled her. Did you see that? She got into the elevator with the president? I bet she didn't even know who he was. He never pays attention to anyone. Why would he help a newbie? Ha-ri sighed. It was best to focus on her work, but fate had other plans. By late morning, her supervisor called her over. We need a copy of these contracts delivered to the president's office. Now. Ri's heart pounded. The CEO's office? On her first day? With no choice, she grabbed the documents and headed to the top floor, the CEO's floor. Upon arriving, Ji-hoon's secretary gave her a once-over before motioning for her to enter. The office was spacious, minimalist, and sophisticated. Ji-hoon sat behind his desk, typing something on his laptop. Without looking up, he said, "Leave the documents on the desk." Ha-ri nodded and walked toward the desk, but in a moment of distraction, her foot caught on the rug, and she stumbled. The contracts flew through the air, scattering across the floor once again. Silence. She shut her eyes, feeling her embarrassment swell. Impressive. Ji-hoon finally looked up. You have a special talent for creating chaos. Ha-ri bit her lip and hurried to pick up the papers. I'm sorry, sir. That wasn't my intention. He watched her for a moment before picking up one of the papers and examining it. These contracts have errors. Did you even check them before bringing them here? She blinked, surprised. She grabbed one of the documents and, to her horror, noticed that some numbers had been switched. Had her supervisor given her the wrong contracts? I just delivered what I was given, she said, trying to remain calm. Ji-hoon sighed and closed his laptop. Mistakes like this can cost millions. If you intend to work here, make sure to check everything before acting on impulse. Ha-ri clenched her fists. It was her first day, and she was already being reprimanded by the CEO. Taking a deep breath, she gathered the papers, bowed slightly, and left without another word. But as she closed the door, she heard Ji-hoon's quiet voice. Interesting. It was the beginning of something neither of them expected. As Ji-hoon returned to work, he realized his thoughts kept drifting back to that clumsy assistant. Something about her intrigued him, even if he didn't want to admit it. On the floor below, Ha-ri wondered how fate could be so cruel. Little did she know that this first encounter was just the beginning of a story that would change her life forever. The following days were anything but peaceful for Yoon Ha-ri. Working at Hwang Corporations was already a challenge, but dealing with the CEO himself was a daily test of patience. Ever since their first encounter in the elevator, Ji-hoon seemed determined to push her limits. The office buzzed with important meetings, tight deadlines, and a competitive team that didn't take kindly to a newcomer receiving so much attention. But Hari refused to be intimidated. The next morning, she was given an unexpected task: to review a financial report and personally deliver it to the CEO. When she entered his office, Ji-hoon barely glanced at her before pointing to the desk without saying a word. An uncomfortable silence lingered in the air. "Here is the revised report, sir," Hari said, trying to maintain her composure. He took the document, flipping through the pages with the same impassive expression as always. Then, he arched an eyebrow and looked at her. "These calculations, you corrected them?" Hari hesitated but nodded. "Yes, there were some inconsistencies in the values. I thought it would be better to fix them before submitting the report." Ji-hoon placed the document on the desk and intertwined his fingers. His gaze analyzed her every reaction. "You did this without consulting your supervisor?" Hari swallowed hard. "I just wanted to prevent a bigger mistake." Ji-hoon observed her for a long moment before picking up his pen and signing the document. "You're lucky. Your corrections were accurate. But next time, follow protocol." She nodded, unsure whether that was a compliment or a reprimand. But as she turned to leave, his voice stopped her. "Miss Yoon." She halted. "Do you always submit reports late, or are you just testing my patience?" Hari clenched her fists, but kept her voice steady. "If I had known the CEO had so much free time to keep an eye on me, I would have asked for a raise." The only sound in the office was the rustling of papers on the desk. One corner of Ji-hoon's lips curved into an almost imperceptible smirk. Hari left the office, uncertain if she had been too bold, but the whispers of her colleagues confirmed that her remark had not gone unnoticed. The tension between them grew. Ji-hoon seemed to find her at the most inconvenient moments. He would suddenly appear beside her in meetings, personally review her work, and even ask unnecessary questions just to test her. Employees began to notice the dynamic between them. Some said he was trying to get rid of her. Others suspected something else entirely. Rai didn't know what to think. One evening, Ji-hoon ordered Hari to stay late to review urgent reports. She hesitated but agreed. However, as he glanced at her schedule, he noticed that she always left in a hurry every night. "Do you have another job?" he asked casually. Hari froze. She never talked about her personal life at work. "That has nothing to do with the company, sir," she replied evasively. Ji-hoon studied her for a moment but didn't press further. Instead, he simply said, "Finish quickly. The rain is getting heavy outside." She frowned. How did he know that? That night, when she finally left the building, the storm had worsened. The cold wind bit at her face as she walked toward the bus stop. But before she could cross the street, a sleek black car pulled up beside her. The window rolled down, revealing Ji-hoon in the driver's seat. "Get in. I'll take you home." Hari blinked in surprise. "That's not necessary, sir. I can take the bus." He simply stared at her, his expression unreadable. "I wasn't asking." Her heart pounded. Hesitant, she got into the car. Silence filled the space between them, but something in the air had shifted. As Ji-hoon drove, Hari stole a glance at him. For the first time, he seemed different. Not the cold, impassive man from the office, but someone hiding something behind that rigid facade. What was he thinking? And more importantly, why was her heart beating so fast? Days passed, but the memory of that rainy night lingered. Ever since Ji-hoon had driven her home, Hari felt a strange shift in their dynamic. The CEO was no longer just the relentless boss who tested her patience. He seemed, in some way, closer. But if there was one thing she knew for certain, it was that a clear line separated the two worlds they lived in. That morning, Hari arrived at the office earlier than usual. The atmosphere among the employees felt different, charged with glances and whispers. As she passed by the break room, she overheard a group of colleagues speaking in hushed voices. "Did you see? President Hwang Ji-hoon drove Yoon Hari home the other night," one of the secretaries said. "I bet she's trying to seduce him. Women like her always do that," another commented with disdain. Hari felt her stomach twist. Ignoring the comments, she walked to her desk, but the uneasy feeling lingered. She knew that working at one of the country's biggest companies meant dealing with rumors. But why all of a sudden were they about her? Before she could dwell on the thought, her phone rang. "Miss Yoon, the president wishes to see you in his office now." Ji Hoon's secretary informed her. Hari took a deep breath. Once again, she would have to face that unpredictable man. When she entered the office, Ji Hoon was standing, gazing out at the city skyline through the large window. He turned at the sound of her footsteps and motioned to the chair in front of him. "Sit." Hari obeyed, trying to maintain her composure. "I heard about the rumors," he said directly. She blinked, surprised. "He knew?" "They're just rumors, sir. They'll fade with time," she replied, keeping her voice steady. Ji Hoon studied her for a long moment before taking his seat. "Do you care about what they say?" She hesitated, considering her response. The right answer would be no, but the truth was that yes, it did bother her. Not out of pride, but because she knew rumors like these could be dangerous for someone like Hera, regular employee without the power he had. "I shouldn't, but yes, it bothers me that people judge something that never happened," Hari answered honestly. Ji Hoon ran his fingers over the desk, lost in thought. "Then let's make sure these rumors don't spread any further," he said in a definitive tone. Hari frowned. "What do you mean?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he picked up a folder and slid it across the desk toward her. "From now on, you will be my personal assistant. This way, we avoid misunderstandings, and I can ensure everything stays under control." Hari felt the air leave her lungs. "What? Sir? That's not necessary. I'm just an administrative employee. People will talk even more if I suddenly get promoted." Ji Hoon intertwined his fingers and regarded her with an intense gaze. "Are you refusing a promotion?" She opened her mouth but couldn't find the words. Refusing a promotion at Wang Corporations was almost unthinkable. But accepting it meant getting even closer to that man. And the consequences could be far greater than just simple gossip. Hari felt a chill run down her spine as she realized the crossroads she stood at. Accepting the position meant being by Ji Hoon's side every day under the scrutinizing eyes of the company, and possibly her own heart. What should she do? Accepting the position as Ji Hoon's personal assistant was the hardest decision Yoon Hari had ever made. From that day on, her routine changed drastically. Now, she was always by the CEO's side, managing meetings, schedules, and critical decisions. But with this closeness came the stares, the whispers, and worse direct attacks. That morning, upon arriving at the office, she found an anonymous envelope on her desk. Curious yet apprehensive, she opened it, and her blood ran cold. Inside was a photo of her with Ji Hoon in his car on the stormy night, accompanied by a short but cruel message. Asterisk. Girls like you never last long in this world. Asterisk. Hari swallowed hard, looking around, but no one seemed to notice her reaction. Her heart pounded in her chest. Someone was trying to drive her away, and this wasn't just office gossip, it was a threat. Later, during a meeting, Ji Hoon noticed her unusual silence and called her into his office. As soon as the door closed, he crossed his arms and studied her carefully. "What's going on? You've been acting strange since you got here." Hari hesitated for a moment before finally handing him the photo. Ji Hoon examined it, his jaw tightening with anger. "Who sent this to you?" His voice was low but filled with fury. "I don't know," she admitted, "but it's clear that someone wants me gone." He let out a heavy sigh, tossing the photo onto the desk. "I knew this would happen. The position I hold doesn't allow anyone to get close without consequences." Hari bit her lip, feeling the weight of the situation. She had never wanted to be caught in this kind of intrigue. But before she could respond, Ji Hoon leaned forward slightly, his gaze intense. "Do you want to leave? If that's what you want, I'll understand." Her eyes widened. He was offering her a way out, a chance to escape this world of luxury and venom. But surprisingly, the answer came too quickly, without hesitation. "Number." Ji Hoon looked genuinely surprised. For a brief moment, the air between them was charged with something different. Admiration? Respect? Hari wasn't sure. But one thing was clear. She wasn't backing down so easily. In the following days, the intrigue only escalated. The whispers turned into direct confrontations. Someone leaked information to the press about the new special assistant to the CEO, and gossip headlines started surfacing online. Employees looked at Ha-ri with either disdain or pity, but the worst was yet to come. One afternoon, Ha-ri was called to an unexpected meeting with Ji-hoon's mother. The meeting took place at an upscale restaurant in the heart of Seoul. Upon arrival, she found the matriarch seated with an impassive expression, delicately holding a cup of tea. "Miss Yoon, sit down." Her voice was calm, but ice-cold. Ha-ri took her seat, maintaining a composed posture. She didn't need an explanation to understand why she had been summoned. Ji-hoon's mother slid an envelope across the table. "This should be enough for you to reconsider your choices," she said without preamble. Ha-ri glanced at the envelope, then back at the woman across from her. Her expression remained unchanged. "I don't need to open it to know what's inside," she said with a small, ironic smile. "But I think you should know that I'm not for sale." The woman narrowed her eyes, her expression finally faltering for just a second. "Do you really think you belong in this world? That you will ever be accepted?" she pressed. Ha-ri took a deep breath, meeting her gaze head-on. "I don't know, but I won't run away without trying." Silence fell between them. Finally, Ji-hoon's mother took the envelope back and smiled just barely. "Interesting. Let's see how far your courage takes you." As Ha-ri walked out of the restaurant, her heart pounded. She had just faced the biggest obstacle yet and had refused the easiest way out. But what would come next? Would Ji-hoon be willing to fight against his own family for her? The impact of her meeting with Ji-hoon's mother reverberated through Ha-ri like a persistent echo. She had rejected the bribe, refused to run away, yet the woman's words continued to haunt her mind. "Do you really think you can be part of this world?" The truth was, she wasn't sure. The next day, as she arrived at Hwang Corporations, the stares weighed even heavier upon her. The rumors had spread like wildfire, and now there was talk that she was causing trouble for Ji-hoon. She knew that in this environment, perception mattered more than truth. That was when Ji-hoon called her for a private meeting. When Ha-ri entered his office, she found him standing by the window, his gaze fixed on the city below. "You should have told me about what happened with my mother," he said, without turning around. Ha-ri pressed her lips together. She knew he would find out, but still there was something unexpected in his tone frustration. "I didn't want to drag you into this, Ji-hoon." Her voice was low but firm. He slowly turned, his intense eyes scanning every detail of her expression. "Do you think I'm not already involved? They're trying to push you away because of me, and I can't allow them to keep hurting you." Ha-ri felt her chest tighten. For a moment, she thought about how easy it would be to give in, to let him fight this battle alone. But she knew the cost of that choice might be too high for both of them. "Ji-hoon, I need to think." The words came out hesitant but necessary. The silence between them was dense, heavy, with all the things left unsaid. Finally, he nodded. "If that's what you want, I'll respect it. But know this, I'm not ready to give up." She lowered her gaze, feeling the weight of her decision. In the days that followed, Ha-ri distanced herself. She requested a temporary leave from work, needing space to sort out her feelings. Without the frantic pace of the company, she found herself confronted by solitude and the doubts she had been avoiding. Meanwhile, in Ha-ri's absence, Ji-hoon buried himself in work as a way to distract himself, but nothing seemed to have the same spark. No matter how much he tried to ignore it, something inside him felt broken. It wasn't until a close friend asked him a simple yet devastating question. "Are you really willing to let her go?" Ji-hoon had no answer. For the first time in a long while, he felt like he had no control over his own fate. At the same time, Ha-ri received distressing news. The hospital where her mother was receiving treatment was facing budget cuts and could soon shut down several departments. The uncertainty grew, and her doubts about a future with Ji-hoon now mixed with a very real need for stability. But before she could make any decisions, her phone rang. Ji-hoon's name flashed across the screen. "Ha-ri, we need to talk." His voice was firm, but there was an urgency in his tone that made her heart race. Ha-ri felt a chill run down her spine. Something had changed. Had Ji-hoon finally made a definitive decision? Or were more obstacles waiting just around the corner? The phone was still in her hands when Ha-ri felt her heart race. Ji-hoon's voice had been firm, but there was an unusual urgency in it. Taking a deep breath, she answered, "Where do we meet?" Ji-hoon didn't hesitate. On the rooftop of the building in 30 minutes. The night wrapped Seoul in an urban glow, with the wind carrying promises of change. When Ha-ri arrived at the rooftop, she found Ji-hoon standing by the railing, gazing at the horizon. His dark eyes gleamed when he saw her, and he wasted no time. "I can't ignore this anymore, Ha-ri," he started, without preamble. She swallowed hard, waiting for his next words. "I've spent my life controlling every aspect of my fate, but then you appeared, turning everything upside down, and I realized that some things can't be planned." His gaze locked onto hers. "You made me see that the world isn't just about numbers and strategies. You made me want something more." Ha-ri felt her throat tighten. Her mind told her to be cautious, but her heart had already been conquered long ago. "Ji-hoon," she whispered, hesitant. He stepped forward and took her hands in his. "I know my family opposes this. I know the world around me wants to push us apart, but I choose you. I choose to fight for this, no matter what happens." Tears threatened to form in Ha-ri's eyes. It was everything she had wanted to hear, but there was still fear. "What if things get even harder?" she asked. Ji-hoon smiled slightly. "Then we'll face them together, but I don't want a future without you anymore." The silence was filled only by the cutting wind. Ha-ri finally made her decision. She didn't want to run, didn't want to give up on what she felt. Then, with a trembling smile, she squeezed his hands. "I choose you too, Ji-hoon." The next morning, Ji-hoon did something unexpected. He called for a press conference. Standing before cameras and attentive gazes, he took the microphone and declared, "To anyone who has doubts about my personal decisions, let me make things clear once and for all. I love Yoon Ha-ri, and I don't care about social conventions or expectations. What matters is what we feel, and the life we want to build together." The news spread quickly. The reaction was mixed: shock, support, scandal. But Ji-hoon no longer cared. He had chosen his path. When Ha-ri watched the broadcast, she knew there was no turning back. Her heart belonged to that man, and now he had shown the entire world that the feeling was mutual. Ha-ri and Ji-hoon would face challenges, but now they were together. The battle against prejudice and social pressures wouldn't end there, but they had proven that love was stronger. When Ji-hoon found her after the press conference, he cupped her face gently and whispered, "Ready for the next chapter of our story?" She smiled, holding his hand. "Always."
You're my eternal